Alon, welcome back on to the OneTake podcast. With House of the Dragon coming back next month, Talking Targaryen needs to start up again. And we're out of practice, so I figured let's do a few practice rounds of podcasting, talking about some other stuff. And let's try that. Say hello, Alon.
Hey, well, actually, I'm good to go because every night before bed, I podcast to myself while in bed in preparation. I don't record it. Just like, so Alon, what do you think of the upcoming season of House of the Dragon?
I
Oh,
like
yeah,
it.
it's pretty good.
You say that as a joke, but I actually do that. Like not intentionally. It's not like I'm doing it on purpose. But if I know that we're going to try podcasting soon, then when I get in bed, my mind just starts to imagine what's that going to be like, and I start playing it out in my head. Like this
Well,
conversation I've had like 3 times this week already.
I feel like you're never not talking. It's not an insult. I mean, like every time I look at you, I see you like mouthing, like you're always practicing something.
I think that's true. And I think that has to do with why I ended up doing what I do. Because growing up, even in school, I remember when my teachers would be talking, in my head, I'd think, how would I have said that? Like, how would I have said that better? And I would just be practicing teaching whatever I was learning, like as I was learning it.
Yeah, that your teachers probably would have been insulted if they saw you mouthing what they're like. What do you do? Stop!
You've noticed that while we're recording, you're talking and you see my lips moving.
Which I don't understand how you do that when it's unscripted.
By the way, so you know this, but I'm watching a cat right now, cat sitting, and the one thing I've never had a cat before. It's the one thing I'm getting used to is how sneaky they are. Like in a small apartment, you might not be able to find them because any crevice they can fit. You know, if it fits, I sits. I don't know if you've heard that before.
I know the meme.
But the door to this room just slowly opened. I don't even see her, but I know she must be in here right now. But I have to be careful because I was warned that she likes to chew wires. And for a while, I caught her every time she was trying to do it. But the other day, I dozed off on the couch for like 2 minutes. And when I woke up, my phone cord or my phone charger was in 3 pieces.
Why do you think they do that?
Wait, did you hear that?
Yeah, I did.
It's just staring at me and meowing right now.
I feel like they chew wires. They know because they know it's wrong. Because as soon as you catch them, they're like, wow. And and I just can't imagine it like feels that great to chew. Like you'd think it would feel better to chew on like a cat toy.
Well, that's where I disagree because I looked at the charger and I was like, I could see it. Like if you feel the iPhone cable, it's got like a nice kind of chewy texture.
Oh wait, is it like that new one, like this kind of like nylon-y?
No, it's before that.
Oh, so it's kind of like this, like rubbery.
Yeah.
Okay. Here, let me try this real quick.
It would be like chewing on a Twizzler or something.
Oh, okay, I get it now. So why don't
with no flavor though?
They should make toys for dogs and cats that are just wire texture.
I guess you don't want to teach them that you're supposed to chew those things.
Well, it doesn't need to look like a wire. Like there can be some difference in appearance, so they don't mistake.
That's true. Yeah, lucky for us, our dog, he chewed on a wire at an early age, and I think it like shocked him, and so I think he was terrified of it.
Yeah, I remember. Our mom likes to point out that I made this hilarious joke a long time ago where instead of electric fence, we could just put a giant wire around the entire yard.
There was one time she was cooking and she was trying to feed him a little bit of spaghetti, but she accidentally dropped it and it landed on his back. And then the rest of the day he was so timid, he like went and hid under the table and we couldn't because there was a spaghetti on his back and he didn't know what it was.
So he probably was just thought it was a wire.
Well, I think he thought we used to put that like tick treatment or whatever that keeps ticks away. And I think when the first few times we applied that, it like freaked him out. And so maybe he thought that's what the spaghetti was, or maybe he thought it was a wire.
Maybe both.
So OneTake just hit 200,000 subscribers.
Come on. I thought you'd be at 300 by now.
I know. But hey, it's just in time for some important anniversaries because May 20th, 3 days from now, and about 5 days after we hit 200K, May 20th is the 5-year anniversary of the first video we posted.
The Game of Thrones series finale review.
Yeah, which
which
was
is when every YouTube channel blew up.
yeah, that's true. Well, I think most of them blew up before the finale. There was a big wave of channels that I think got their start during Game of Thrones, and we just missed that wave. Like literally starting the day that show ended.
True. But also, a lot of these channels love talking about things they hate, which apparently people, including me, like to watch other YouTubers complain about things they hate. But I feel like your content is generally pretty positive. So, meaning I don't know if the Game of Thrones, like last few episodes, even would have contributed that much to your rise.
Yeah, for us, we maybe started at the right time because
We
I
just
got.
depend on good, positive, quality content.
Yeah, well, the trick I use is that if I don't, I'll give my opinion if I have something good to say. And if I don't have something good to say, I'll just do a timeline. I'll just recap it.
I'm trying to think of something really bad that the timeline of what's a really bad show.
Well, there are people, I'll tell you actually, I was thinking about this. For the timelines, there are a few franchises that frequently get requested that people want me to do a timeline of. Fast and Furious,
Mm.
which I think is just because if there's a lot of something, it's just satisfying to see a timeline, especially if it's out of order. And Fast and Furious 3 takes place after like 4, 5, and 6. Because I think they killed a character in 3, but he was a fan favorite. So they're like, all right, fine. We'll just set 4, 5, 6 before 3. But then eventually they were catching up to it. And they're like, well, and then they
Isn't
were
there
like,
also?
twist,
Yeah,
he's not actually dead anyway.
yeah. I mean, it's lucky that in movies and shows you could always kill someone, just bring them back whenever you want. So you get the benefit of the attention from the audience. Like, oh my god, they actually killed him. You know.
Yeah.
And then but we can always bring them back and do it again.
Yeah, which comes from comics used to do that. I mean, they still do that, but it was a huge event. I think in the '90s when they killed Superman. And there's a podcast I love. I don't know if you know this one. Tell him, Steve, Dave.
I've heard of
Yeah,
it because you talk about it a lot.
he's joking because I bring it up all the time. But one of the guys on that podcast, Walter Flanagan, he used to run the Secret Stash, Kevin Smith's comic book store, and he tells a story where he heard somebody. This was probably before he worked there, I think. But he tells a story of overhearing a guy at the comic book store who was so upset that Superman died, and he goes, "He was my guy." And then a few years later, of course, he comes back to life.
Wait,
Which good.
years later? I mean, that is a long time though.
Yeah, that's where you give them credit sometimes is I don't expect a superhero to be dead permanently, but if you give it a few years, that you do get some impact. Like at minimum, the character is going away for a while.
Yeah, is I haven't kept up with comics. Is there still like with like the major franchises a main timeline that's been going on forever, or
Yeah.
are they basically all branches at this point?
No, so they have a main timeline, but there will often be reboots that are part of that timeline. So like you saw the Flash, he went back in time,
Yeah,
tried to save his mom, and that changed the timeline. So they did that in DC Comics, and that caused a big reboot where everything changed. But then they sort of changed it back. So there have been multiple timelines, I guess, but you can trace them all back. Like they never did, we're just doing a reboot now. There's always an in continuity explanation for why things are different or why things started over. Yeah,
gotcha.
I mean, the last time, or maybe the only time I was really like moved, I guess, or affected by a superhero dying is in the Amazing Spider-Man, in the main Spider-Man continuity. Doc Ock was dying, like he had cancer or something, and he managed to trade bodies with Peter Parker. So then Peter was in Doc Ock's
Hmm.
dying body, and Doc Ock died,
Yeah,
but his soul lived on in Peter's body, so he stole his life. And I was like, he was my guy. But he was gone for a while. Like I think it might have been a couple of years, and they retitled the series from Amazing Spider-Man to The Superior
Doc
Spider.
Ock Spider Man.
Close. The Superior Spider-Man. That's what Doc Ock called himself. and I couldn't stop reading. I was like, I need to see if they bring Peter back. They have to bring him back, right? And at first, it turned out that Peter's consciousness kind of lingered. He was almost like a ghost haunting Doc Ock.
Of course, they couldn't commit.
Well, but then Ock created a machine to erase his consciousness. And I was like, oh my God, he was my guy. But eventually he came back. I don't remember
Yeah.
exactly how. Yeah. But the funny thing is they'll still have Superior Spider-Man show up like in the Spider-Verse events that they'll do. They'll be able to pull Superior Spider-Man in with time travel, so they can like pluck him from the time stream before he turned back into regular Peter.
They, are there any superhero? Um, I don't know, like where there's no time travel at all. Like they need to make the Marvel universe, the MCU with time travel and all the crazy stuff, but then make other MCU movies where there's nothing that crazy.
Well, so they tried that with. Hold on one sec. I hear her meowing like crazy. It's making me feel bad. But also, she'll do that if she accidentally gets trapped in a room. Like if she walks into the bathroom, but then like accidentally closes the door. So I'll be right back.
Yeah, I understand.
She just wanted attention. The thing is, earlier when I was giving her attention, she didn't want it. It's just if they feel like you're not paying attention, it's like she wants it when she can't have it.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. Last night I put on my Vision Pro and immediately she stares at me and just keeps meowing over and over. The same thing when we were watching a puppy. If I ever put the Vision Pro on, she would just start whining.
Yeah, but doesn't she see your eyes through the thing?
I know. That's what I tell her. I'm like, don't you see my eyes? Like I'm still here. Yeah, so I tried to pick her up and put her in my lap.
That means that she understands that you're only paying attention to her when she can see your eyeballs.
Right. Well, that's what they say about cats is that if they like you, well, if they want to show affection, they look at you in the eyes and they blink slowly. The theory is that it's showing trust because, look, I'm willing to have my eyes closed in front of you. That's how much I trust you. So I can't tell. Like I tried to get her to do it. Like I was like flicking her eyes to see if I can get her to close it. But I pet her a little bit, and now she's right over here, sitting near me, and I'm covered in cat hair.
Nice.
So you were asking, has there ever been like a main continuity superhero without all the crazy time travel stuff? So Marvel realized this is a problem. Just that it's becoming so convoluted over the course of decades and decades. That's why they created, I think in the early 2000s, the Ultimate Marvel imprint, where they had Ultimate Spider-Man, Ultimate X-Men. And the idea was that we're going to start from scratch in a separate continuity. The main one will keep going. But in this separate continuity, you can start reading from issue 1. You won't be confused. And if people die, they are dead permanently. It's not going to get all crazy time travel and stuff. And then, of course, it lasted years, but eventually it just became as convoluted as the main continuity. And then they ended Ultimate Marvel. It wasn't selling as well. But one thing that always bothers me with comics is that just because something is ending, they have this need to write that ending into the continuity. We can't just stop telling stories in the Ultimate Marvel universe. We have to destroy that universe. So like the whole universe got eaten or something. And then anyone that sold Miles Morales, they got saved. They got plucked out. Because there was some like super powerful being, and Miles had shared a hamburger with him when he was hungry. And so as a thank you, he plucked him out and put him into the main continuity, along with all of his friends and family. And then it's like questionable whether or not he remembers he's from another universe. Like when it's convenient, he remembers. Otherwise, like we don't talk about that.
That's why you need to eat a hamburger with everybody, just in case.
Just in case they happen to be a super powerful being that can move you to a better continuity.
Yeah.
And I hate this continuity. All right, that's been the OneTake podcast. Well, so 200,000 subscribers. I thought this could be a nice time to look back and do a little reflection on how we got here. And it might be helpful to anyone who's listening if they want to start their own YouTube journey. And so for us, it started, like we already said, with that first video reviewing the last episode of Game of Thrones. And from there, we had no idea what to do. We basically scattershot, did a ton of different videos. Sometimes we'd review an episode of a show, like week to week. Other times it'd be a little review of a movie. I was doing a lot of the news reaction. I was like, hey, they're doing a Napoleon Dynamite comic book. Or let me react to the trailer for Birds of Prey. I remember that was one of the early videos.
Wow. No.
It was rare that I did genuine reaction videos. In fact, that was some of our earliest controversies, is that I would call something a reaction because I'm like, well, I'm reacting to the news, but they want you to be on camera watching a trailer going, no way.
Then you get comments like, this isn't a reaction.
Yeah, exactly.
Whoa.
That's exactly what the comment. Yeah, it's pretty much spot on. But doing that, the best we saw was a video might crack like a couple thousand views. And I didn't see any possible way this could be a full-time thing. And at a certain point, I gave up. There was a several-month drought with no content. And that's actually pretty heartwarming. I saw at least 2 comments of people saying, anybody know if the OneTake guys are doing okay? They haven't seen any uploads in a while. But I decided, instead of doing these little quick to put together videos, let me try and put a lot of effort into one video. Do a produced video that's scripted, voiceover, incorporates a lot of footage. And that first video of that format was the Better Call Saul predictions video. Predictions for the final season. And
Better Call Saul was huge for you.
It was, yeah. I mean, that's actually pre everything we just talked about. Before talking about the finale of Game of Thrones, Adam and I, my younger brother, we were doing Sawcast, which continued on, during the life of OneTake. But that's really where we started, was doing the Sawcast podcast, and then eventually started doing it on video for OneTake. But that Saul predictions video was sort of my first ever evergreen video. And that concept is basically, evergreen means it's relevant forever. Now, that's not exactly true for the Better Call Saul finale, but it took a couple of years for that final season to come out. So for those 2 years, that video just racked up views every day. And that's when I realized you could just create a portfolio of evergreen videos. So if I make 20 videos in a year and they're all evergreen, now you've got 20 videos that are just producing views daily for years.
And money.
Well, I wasn't going to mention that. We won't talk about that. But yeah, revenue. But it was hard. What is it? How do you make an evergreen video? That's, at least now I knew what I was shooting for, but it took a while to figure out what actually met that criteria. Well, it turns out timelines. That's the big one. People love a good timeline. I realized that first with Dark. I did a recap, like a super detailed recap of the entire Dark series. And I remember at the time, Daniel, my other younger brother, he was like, why would you, who would watch that? What's the point? And I'm like, I don't know the point, to be honest. But doesn't it just seem like it would be nice? Like, that's a complicated show. If you just literally had this big video with tons of chapters, like I did chapter markers for that weren't episode by episode. It was events. So if you remembered a particular thing happened, you look through the chapters, you get a little reminder of what happened. It's like an encyclopedia of the show.
I think for something like Dark, a timeline makes a lot of sense, actually, because you're like jumping back and forth, and it is very confusing, like you said. So it helps you understand exactly what happened in chronological order, which makes it less confusing. For something like Fast and Furious, I would say a timeline, technically it's a timeline, but really it's probably it's better for like a recap of everything that happened before you go see the next one. But it also doubles as a timeline for those that are interested.
Yeah, I think like those are the two purposes that these recaps serve. Like, either it helps you to understand what you saw, and I would say Dark meets that criteria. Then I did a Matrix recap. And again, that's one where those movies get really confusing with parts 2 and 3. So this sort of simplifies it. And it's a recap, but it's a simplified, and it doubles as an explainer. Like, I don't just take the whole speech from the architect. I don't tell you what the architect says. I tell you what he meant.
Ergo,
vis-a-vis,
vis-a-vis.
ergo.
There's one more.
There was another one, yeah. Ergo, vis-a-vis, concordantly. I don't know. It wasn't that. But I basically translated him. And then, yeah, the other purpose a recap serves is you're about to go see the latest entry in a franchise. Here's everything that happened so you remember.
Concurrently.
Oh, it was concurrently.
Ergo, vis-a-vis, concurrently.
Okay.
Eh.
So concurrently, the next recap I tried to make, or one of the next big ones, was the Spider-Man recap. No Way Home was coming out. This was actually a lot. A lot of this was thanks to you, because Spider-Man No Way Home was coming out, and I thought if you could recap all the previous Spider-Man movies, because it was heavily rumored and everyone basically knew that they were bringing back Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. It was the weirdest thing. The first announcement they made about No Way Home was that Jamie Foxx was coming back as Electro.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, "What?"
Like, don't announce anything. You know, it's like everyone would have still seen that movie. Everyone sees Spider-Man. Okay? You don't need to give us little hints that basically give away everything. You know?
Well, to be fair though, like I feel like I always play devil's advocate to you,
Yeah,
but
you
that
do.
movie was incredibly successful. One of the most successful movies ever. Made over $1 billion during the pandemic. I don't know that would have happened if people. I feel like there was a huge nostalgia factor.
Yes, but here's what would have happened. The first people that would have seen Spider-Man no matter what would have seen it, and then the news would have gotten out.
Word of mouth.
And then those people would have gone anyway. Well, unless people need to hear it early. I don't know. How early in advance do people plan to go to the movies? Like if they just heard like yesterday, oh, Tobey Maguire's in this, I'm going to go tonight. Or do they need to hear the rumors like months earlier?
Yeah, I don't know. I like how I know better than Kevin Feige, and then like 2 minutes later, like, wait a minute. When do people plan to go see movies?
Well,
Take such a strong stance.
I guess it's more of a personal problem. I just need to not consume any media at all.
Yeah,
I need you to just compile a list for me of these, like, new Spider-Man movie. Don't tell me the title. Just tell me what the movie is and when it comes out. And I won't watch any trailers. I won't look at my phone ever. And then that way, everything's a surprise.
That's going to make this podcast really difficult if we want to make this a sustainable thing. You're not allowed to. And that's the number one thing people want is the speculation, the reaction to the news. Well, actually, based on the survey I did at the beginning of the year, the number one thing people want is in-depth discussions. No. Well, but specifically for podcasts and live streams, they want in-depth discussions of movies. 11%, I think, wanted what we're doing right now. But this is what I want. That Spider-Man recap got 25 million views. Whatever. And then,
that's impressive.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, that was exciting because, obviously, because it's 25 million views, but also, I always thought the only way for me to get any kind of foothold on YouTube would be to find the niche, the thing that people care about, but not a lot of people are talking about.
Spider-Man.
Yeah, exactly. Spider-Man, exactly. Yeah. No, Better Call Saul was the perfect fit for that because it has a very loyal fan base, but it wasn't covered anywhere near to the same extent as Breaking Bad. So there was so much room for people like us to come in and talk about it. But I figured there's not even a point in making a video about Spider-Man or Batman or anything like that. There's no reason.
So I was just going to say, it is weird how when Better Call Saul came out, I do feel like, I mean, I felt like it too. Like, I just wasn't that interested for some reason. And like, I watched the first episode or two. I was just I was a little bored. And I feel like a lot of people probably saw it and were just like, I don't need to just watch like a lawyer show, you know? Yeah, I don't know. So I guess that carried over to YouTube videos about it as well, or just people didn't seem that interested, like the large population.
Right. No, I think that's right. So like the mainstream outlets, they didn't have as much incentive to cover it. I think that the show was off to somewhat of a slow start. And then you had the Tuco cameo at the end of episode 1, which is the thing everyone was afraid of. It's just going to be like cameos. And they end with Tuco. And it's like, I ended up loving where they went with it. But it just, your immediate reaction to it is a little sus.
Yeah.
But I figured what Dark taught me is that one easy way for me to stand out is if I make a really long video. Because that's my power, is that I can get so obsessive and determined. And so one way I could stand out from anybody else is your video's 20 minutes long, mine's 3 hours long.
Yeah.
So I figured let me apply that to Spider-Man, and maybe this is a way that I can actually get some kind of foothold on a mainstream property. And I was thinking about it. I wasn't sure. I mentioned it to you, and you're like, I mean, that'd be cool. I'd watch that.
I do sound like that. And I also do love really long YouTube videos that I just watch over the span of like a week.
Yeah, same here.
Like, oh no, I have to go to the bathroom again. Oh, I got to listen to another, 30, 40 minutes.
That's why we share a WeWork office. Yeah, I always see you like pacing in the hallway. You're like, oh, time to get back. No, I got to keep going. Just listening to some long form. Yeah, it's not true. But then something happened. So I feel like OneTake really hit its stride, with that 25 million views.
Right.
Yeah, but then I decided, okay, we've hit it big. We hit the mainstream. Huge Spider-Man recap. I did a review of the movie, tons of views. I even talked about some Spider-Man comics, tons of views. And then I decided, oh, Raised by Wolves season 2 is coming back. So I switched from this big mainstream thing to covering a niche sci-fi show that even the fans of the first season weren't really watching anymore. And I did almost nothing but Raised by Wolves season 2 coverage for weeks. And then when I came back to Spider-Man, it was crickets. And that taught me a few things, which YouTube will deny this, but I think that you kind of are training the algorithm who your audience is. And so I told YouTube my audience is 12-year-olds who like Spider-Man. And then I came out with Raised by Wolves videos, and it recommends them to 12-year-olds who like Spider-Man. Mm-hmm. And they're like, what is this? Wolves? I don't like wolves. And I don't like being raised. I'm a child. I hate my parents. And so none of them watched it. And then slowly I reconstructed.
I hate buying things.
Exactly. That reminds me of the Princess of Mars, this classic sci-fi story that Disney decided to turn into a movie. But they're like, well, boys don't like princesses, so we can't use the word princess. But girls don't like planets, so we can't use the word Mars. So they ended up calling the movie John Carter. Just the most bland title possible.
Oh, I remember that.
They think they were going to call it like John Carter of Mars.
Yeah, but even John Carter, that name sounds like a boy, like a man movie.
It's like Jack Bauer.
Yeah. Jack Reacher,
Jack Ryan.
Jack and the Beanstalk.
Yeah, the classic. That was basically the precursor to like the Arnold Schwarzeneggers and Stallones, the Jack and the Beanstalk.
Yeah.
Well, so slowly I had to reconstruct my Raised by Wolves audience, because we did have an audience in the first season. That was another, I kind of glossed over it, but that was another success for the channel, where it was similar to Better Call Saul. There were a lot of people who cared about it, but not so many that everyone was talking about it. So there was room for us. And we were covering it week to week, ended up getting an interview with Aaron Guzikowski, the showrunner, which was one of the best experiences I've had with the channel. That was awesome. But so we rebuilt our Raised by Wolves audience, and that's telling the algorithm, like, hey, we're a niche sci-fi channel. So then when I went back to try and do more superhero content, it's recommending it to people who are into niche sci-fi. And that seems like the kind of people who would like comics, right?
I really feel like, I know a lot of people have these tactics of like creating like separate channels, but you should be able to create like, I guess that's what playlists are, but like sub channels where it's like, if you like most of the content on a channel, but you just want to focus on the sci-fi and the comedy, but don't show me the drama stuff from this channel. It's just like, it's ridiculous for you to need to make a OneTake sci-fi channel, OneTake superhero channel,
Well, even what we're doing right now, like this, I'm not going to put on the main channel because I'm terrified that we've had 8 videos come out this year.
I wouldn't be here. I thought this was going to your 200,000 subscribers. I'm out of here.
Well, that's the thing. Even if we, it's to your point, like we should be able to control that. Like I should be able to tell YouTube, like, hey, I'm going to release this podcast video. Like don't recommend this to most people on the.
Yeah.
They're not going to watch it. But then YouTube would say, well, why are you posting it then?
You know what? It's like a TV channel. Fox has Simpsons, then they have X Files, but they're not like it's not like when you're at home, all of a sudden something pops up in your face like X Files just is on now. No, X Files is on at 10. I'm not interested. So that's it. You just don't watch
Yeah.
it. Like you don't load up my subscription page. You know what? I changed my mind. If I see things on my subscription page I'm not interested, I just keep scrolling. It doesn't bother me.
Yeah. Well, but the problem is when you keep scrolling, I think that is a ding against the channel.
But
That's
it shouldn't
YouTube
be.
learning. Wait a minute, Alon doesn't actually want to watch OneTake videos, so I'm less likely to recommend the next one.
Yeah,
And that's
I
where
don't want to watch some OneTake videos.
right. And so I think the algorithm is meant to be smart enough to know which ones you want to watch and which ones you don't. And look, maybe it is, but I'm just going based off of my experience. And I'm also seeing a lot of channels are doing this where if they have content that's a little different from what they normally do, they break it off to another channel. Like Jonathan Young, he's the one who covers all the anime music with like
Yeah.
metal covers, but
Good
he also
stuff.
does his own original music.
Which
And
is,
I think
is really good.
yeah, I've listened to some of it, but I
Yeah.
think he was worried that posting his original music was losing him some of the fans who want his anime music.
Yeah.
So he broke them into two separate channels. The majority of viewers come to you from the YouTube homepage or up next, where you're watching a video and then YouTube just recommends another one. So you are dependent. And I usually get it's a pet peeve of mine to hear people blame the algorithm because the algorithm is really just meant to be the audience. It's meant to just figure out the audience and respond to them. If people want to watch your videos, the algorithm will feed them your videos. But I do think there's something there, which I guess it's true for an audience too. If you give them 5 videos they like, and then all of a sudden give them 3 they don't, they're less likely to watch the next one. But I guess it would be nice if there was a way to recognize, like, I know this next one isn't for you guys, so I don't want to get dinged for throwing it at
Yeah.
you. But I guess that's where having a separate channel, maybe it makes sense. I don't know. I'm talking in circles here.
Yeah. No, I mean, listen, the algorithm needs some work. Like, generally, I only want content related to fitness and movies and video games. Once in a while, I'll be like, oh, let me watch this cute otter video, And then it's like, oh, you watched one? Here's like 30 otter videos.
Yeah, they're like, we need otter videos. Come on, bring them in.
Yeah, and then it takes like a month for me to get them off my home screen.
That's true. I mean, sometimes though it works. Like you watch one video and you're like, I'm kind of into this. This is cool. And then suddenly you are just inundated and you go so far into some niche you just discovered.
Yeah, you know what helps to stop watching those cute animal videos? They all have awful music in the background. And it's always the same one too. It's probably one of those like YouTube library songs.
I don't
it's
want
a
to hear
good
it.
song. It's a good song, but not over and over and over.
Splashing Around is one I hear a lot for animal videos.
That might be the one.
Yeah. But so anyway, that taught me a couple lessons, and that's where I decided it's pretty important, not just for the algorithm, but also for the audience. It would be good to have a bit more of a defined scope of what videos we do. Because if you think about your favorite channels, usually they're doing a pretty similar format for every video. And as a result, you get excited whenever they post one because you know it's going to be more of what you like. But OneTake, if you're like, I can't wait for the next Batman timeline. Oh, okay. It's season 2, episode 7 review Raised by Wolves. Or Gil reacting to the latest issue of Angel, the comic. I can understand as an audience member why that wouldn't be great. So for the last 2 years, it's been my goal to figure out what are the 2 or 3 things we do. And I feel like last year we kind of honed in on an answer. And as a result, just yesterday we updated the channel banner and it's all right there. Timelines.
Take a look at this.
Yeah, take a look at it.
Take a look.
Timelines, retrospectives, video
That's a
essays.
nice banner.
Nice banner. Thank you to
simple. I think I like the red dots.
right, because they signify like a record button.
Yeah. It's nice.
Yeah, and it's got the elevator pitch. This is what we do. Timelines, retrospectives, video essays. Video essays will be what blank is really about. And I learned some lessons on that last year. I did a ton of those. I basically made a goal to do one every week. But as a result, I think I ended up analyzing movies that don't necessarily require that analysis. Like what Creed 3 is really about. I mean, that video actually did better than I expected, but it's not an evergreen video. 5 years from now, no one's going to be like, what are the deeper themes of Creed 3? So I think this year, you're going to see, and I think you have seen, far fewer What Blank is Really About videos. But I think they're better, or at least I'm focusing on movies that I think will be in the conversation for a long time. 28 Days Later, Blade Runner 2049, Civil War. Yeah, so and then retrospectives, I put that on there. I mean, to be honest, I've really only done 2, maybe 3 of those so far. There's the Halloween video, there's the recent Monsterverse, and then I put the Christmas horror video in that category. Basically, if I'm recapping and reviewing a bunch of movies in basically a marathon session, retrospective. So I think that's a good elevator pitch. I would like to get to a point where I can just review a movie. If you think about a movie channel, wouldn't you think their bread and butter is like, oh, they review movies? But I typically don't, because anytime I've tried, like, oh, the new Guardians of the Galaxy is out, let me do a review, it really underperforms. And I think that's because a million people are doing that. So that's when I realized, I was like, okay, for Halloween a couple years ago, I was like, I'd like to talk about the Michael Myers movies. But I know if I do a review of Halloween 1 or 2, no one's going to watch that. So I had to stand out the way I always do. Let me make it a 4-hour video so people will just see that little timestamp. So that's why.
Little did they know why it was so long.
I know that there's like literally a 30 minutes worth of a storyline in there, which some people love that. Some people, I've seen some comments, thank you for including chapter markers so I can skip past the storyline parts. But that's why you're not seeing reviews. If I do a review, it's going to be one part of a 6-hour video. But this year, I'm hoping to do so many retrospectives that people get so used to seeing me review movies, it's like tricking them. And eventually they'll realize, wait a minute, a retrospective is just a long review. I'll watch a review of his. So next year, that would be my goal, is to sometimes review movies.
Nice. I wish you luck in tricking your audience into watching your reviews.
It feels like with YouTube, if you want to try something new, it is like steering a big ship. Like it takes, like even that Halloween video, it came out, it did nothing for a year, and then eventually it picked up. It's like turning that ship just takes a long time. I'm going to mention one more thing I want to do for the future, but documentary style videos. Because what is a documentary but a timeline recap of real life?
That's true.
And so I've done 2. I did the history of horror last year for Halloween, and I think that's a great video, except I mispronounced Carl Lammel. And now I'm forgetting if it's Lammel or Lem Lee. I think it's Lammel. Whatever it is, I said it wrong, even though I knew how to say it. I definitely knew, but I was so sleep deprived trying to get it out in time for Halloween.
Algorithm probably dinged you for that.
Exactly. It's probably what happened. And then the first documentary I tried, though, was like 3 years ago, documentary style. Sunday nights on Fox.
I was very excited for that one.
Those were the best.
Yeah.
Futurama, Simpsons, King of the Hill, Malcolm in the Middle. And then if
your 12-year-old audience doesn't know what it was like, man. No. They just got their TikTok, 24/7. Like we had to wait a week until 8 p.m.
And if football went too long,
oh,
Simpsons was skipped. You just didn't get it. The one thing you were looking forward to.
Or you'd start like halfway through. Which, how could they do that?
I know, it's insane. But the problem with that video, a few things. Number one, like nobody watched it. Also, at the time, I was still finding my voice for reading scripted content, and I was doing these pauses that were so long. I was like, back on Sunday nights, Fox was an incredible place to watch. And I was like, I can't even listen to it now. But also, I have this, like that obsession that I get when I'm like recapping stuff. The problem with real life is that there's no limit. You can always, like with a movie, all you can recap is what is in the span of that 2 hour movie. But in real life, it can just go as deep as you want. And I would reach these questions that I would just spend way too much time on. Like that history of horror video, I was thinking to myself, oh, I'll knock that out in a couple days. But then I got to one question. When was the first time people actually used the term
Oh
horror
yeah.
movie? And there were all these different explanations. Like I watched one documentary where they said, well, the reason we called it the horror genre is because in the UK they came out with a banner where they would rate a movie H for horrific if it was too bloody or whatever, and that's how it became the horror genre. And I'm like, but that's not true. Like I can see examples before that where people were calling Dracula a horror movie.
Hmm.
I found examples in the 20s where they used that term, but I ended up spending an entire month digging into that question. I was literally digging through newspaper archives, just searching when was the first time the term horror film or horror movie was used. And so, what was meant to be a history of the entire horror genre essentially boiled down to when did people start saying horror movie? Just still interesting, but I spent way too much time on it. But the same thing happened with Sunday nights on Fox because early on in the days of TV, they had scheduling. They had shows on from certain times to certain other times, and like at 10 o'clock they would be done with shows for the day. And so I was like, well, what happens after that? Like the TV just turns into fuzz. And I was like, I was trying to find an answer to that. And then I was like, what's the deal with, we used to have Fox 5, but then we
Hmm.
also had Fox
Fox 61.
61. And I was like, what's the deal with that? So I went down a whole rabbit hole, and like 6 minutes of the video are just explaining what that all means.
Yeah. Well, you know, my one of my favorite YouTube channels, Ahoy,
Hmm.
just came out with his like annual video. Um, Literally just what genre is Doom. So that's kind of like
That's
you with
interesting. Yeah.
like it's one simple question that he makes like a whole video about. I think it was like 20 minutes long. So it's like, when was horror first used? Like you
Yeah.
could have made a whole video literally just about that one question. Didn't
Yeah.
even
And
need to
I
be
think
like the whole history of horror.
that's valid. And I think the only problem with me is that I'll have a schedule for what videos I want to get done. And then when I spend a month on this, when it should have been less than that, and maybe that's fine. Like I should allow that creativity of just go wherever it takes you. And although that video underperformed, maybe in the future it finds an audience. And I'm proud of the video. Like I think it's a good video. So maybe I should just allow that creative freedom to say, all right, I'm going to spend a month in this divergence. But I think there has to be some, especially I'm trying to do this as a living. There has to be some rigor to it. Like, okay, take as long as you want on that, as long as these other three things get done.
Hmm.
Like, you got to get that timeline done, and then you can go back to this horror video.
Yeah. Or you could have someone else do all the research. The problem is they're not going to go deep enough,
Yeah.
you know?
Oh, and then they'll give me an answer, and I'll never trust it. I'll be like, I need to see. I mean, I guess there's a way to handle that. Like, do the research, show me the sources, show
Mhm.
your work for how you got here.
Yeah.
Who could do that? Guy
Daniel?
Incognito?
Oh. Oren?
Or just making up names now?
Making up names. By the way, do you think it's a false memory that when football games would go over, like they would literally just start an episode of Simpsons in the middle, even if it was a brand new episode?
They definitely did that.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I remember that. And I
So
don't
like
even
you
know.
would just I mean, that's just insane. You start in the middle of a brand new episode of The
Yeah,
Simpsons.
at least it's more acceptable with The Simpsons. It'd be worse if they did it for like X Files,
Yeah.
where it's a very like that plot. There's a plot with Simpsons.
Yeah.
At least you're still getting the jokes.
Yeah. Hmm.
But I want to. I think that Sunday Nights on Fox video. I already told you this, but I want to remake that. I think because there was valuable research there. I think it's a cool topic, and I'd like to do more of these, docu style videos. So I want to bring that one back, sort of remake it tighter, less awkward pauses, and maybe less about like why do some of those news stations have a bunch of numbers after them? Fox 12 versus Fox 8, or at least tighten it up.
Hmm. I would watch it
Cool.
as long as it's at least 4 hours long.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe if I do that, that means no X-Men timeline this year.
I don't. I don't need it.
Yeah, I know. I need it. I need it. Well, why don't we talk about Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes?
Hmm. That movie we just saw.
Yeah, we just saw Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes a few days ago, and I was going to do a formal review. I started writing one, and then the time just passed me by. I don't think I'm going to get it out in time. And now Mad Max is coming out in a few days, so we've moved on. But at least we can give our thoughts on it here.
Hmm.
First thing I'll say about the movie is I thought it was solid. And I'm going to say this up front. We're going to go into spoilers. I don't see the point of a spoiler-free review at this point. Like you don't know if you're going to see the movie or not, and this video is the one that's going to change your mind. You can see the Rotten Tomatoes score. Every other content creator already has their thoughts out on it. The point of this video is you already saw the movie.
It's okay, man. It's okay. you already said it's got spoilers.
Yeah, we're gonna unpack it, or you're not planning to see it and you just want to hear two guys talk about it.
Or you understand it'll be spoiled for you and you'll be mad about it, but you're okay with that.
My Civil War video. I mean, it's not that many people complaining, but like 1 in 10,000 people are like, wow, thanks for the spoilers. It's called What Civil War is Really About. From the beginning of the video, you understand I'm going to break down the themes and meaning of the movie.
Maybe they didn't know you were talking about the movie. And then they're like, I didn't expect spoilers for the movie.
And by the way, it does have a spoiler warning. It says in big, bold letters, spoilers ahead. I think, to be fair, in the future, I'll add a verbal warning as well, I guess. But I just think, isn't it so obvious it's going to be full of spoilers?
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, it is, like I said, it's 1 in 10,000. Most people, and even some of the people who commented that, other people commented back like,
how do you write that?
UUHPHU, I don't know.
How do you start with a B?
I don't know. Well, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. So I thought it was solid. Here are the things I liked about it. I liked that they set it many generations later. A lot of people are estimating 200 to 300 years. And I like that they did that because now there's a chance for real cultures have developed in the ape kingdom. It really starts to feel like a different world from ours, which means we get to discover a new world. And in the original movie, you have a time traveler, somebody who comes from the past and crash lands. So he's the eyes we look through. People have to explain to him what's going on. He has to figure it out. Here, there is no audience surrogate. We are just dropped into the world, and organically, we start to discover their culture, right? It starts off with Noah and his friends are looking for eggs. They mention bonding day, and you start to understand that their culture centers around eagles. Bonding day is some kind of very important coming of age ceremony. I like that they don't hold your hand through this stuff. And because of that, for the first like 15 to 20 minutes, I thought this is going to be a great movie. Like I was skeptical going in, but they actually did it. They're making a great movie here. As it went on, I started to feel like, okay, this is a good movie, but it's not great. Mm-hmm. And that's for a couple reasons. One, it does slow down a bit. There's a whole section where Noah is hanging out with Raka, the orangutan, who's explaining to him.
Orangutan.
That's how I always said it growing up, but there's no G at the end. And if you look it up, the pronunciation is orangutan.
There's a G. Oh. Yeah. I don't think there's a G.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So Noah hanging out with Raka for a while. And it's intellectually interesting to watch him rediscover humanity's true past. It's intellectually interesting, and there's some emotional resonance there, like watching him realize all this. But it is stuff we already know. And it also comes at a point in the movie where his whole clan has been taken, and he's trying to find them. So there's sort of an urgency there of, I need to find my loved ones and my family, but I'm going to hang out here for a while. And there's reasons for it. Like, I think he needs to recuperate. He's not ready to go yet, whatever. There's plot explanations, but just the pacing feels off. It feels like there was this big story, and then we're just stopping for a while. it also feels really convenient that he basically falls into a hole, into a nest where there's a wise ape who knows all the answers.
Yeah.
So there's a convenience there. And then he runs into the human character, and she acts very weird and doesn't fit. There's something off about her. And like I said, spoilers. Thankfully, there is an explanation for that at the end, which was pretty interesting, where it turns out that she is not a sole survivor. She's part of a surviving group of humans that are trying to get satellites turned back on so they can reconnect with humans in other parts of the world. So all of this has been sort of a ruse, just going along with them to get this. Actually, I feel stupid. I didn't connect this until after the movie, but she tells Noah, "I'm looking for a book that can make humans speak again." And he's like, "A book can do this?" And she's like, "This one can." And it turns out she was trying to get a chip that could decrypt the satellites or whatever and turn them back on. So humans can speak again, across the satellites. So she wasn't exactly lying. Though I don't think she could get away with that. I didn't lie to you. I said it was a book that can make people talk again. See, that's not a book.
That's a lie.
I'm not, I might be an ape, but I'm not stupid. That's like a microchip or something, or like a key. It's not a book.
How does he know what a microchip is?
Rocca told him.
Also, that was pretty big. That was more like a macro chip.
Yeah, that's why he's like a microchip or something.
Mm.
It looks like a Nintendo cartridge. So
Yeah,
that's like an NES cartridge or something.
it was like the N64, like expand. What's it called? Expansion pack. No.
Whatever that thing you put in the front if you wanted to play Donkey Kong 64.
Yeah.
Oh, more it ties in Apes. William H. Macy, his character, I just found just something was off about him too. And for him, there wasn't really an explanation. Like a couple things. When he meets this girl who can speak, I feel like that should be a bigger deal. Like, wow, another talking human. When's the last time he saw one of them? At minimum, I feel like that would be the conversation they had. The only conversation they really have is, she's like, "You're a traitor to your people." And yeah, yes, that conversation too, but it didn't feel like they talked about all the stuff they really would actually have talked about. And he's just dumb because he catches them all being sneaky. Noah, May, the girl, and the other apes. And he's like, "Oh, Proximus Caesar's going to skin you alive when I tell him about all this. Let me turn my back now and slowly walk away." And so they kill him. And speaking of convenience earlier, this franchise cannot stop with the not exactly Deus Ex Machina, but just it can't handle a real war because war is too complicated. So in War for the Planet of the Apes, spoilers for that movie, the entire remains of the U.S. Army, they come from the north. They all gather in a tight pack right here so an avalanche can kill them all. Nice, clean ending. Here, we can't have like guerrilla tactics and having to fight a more powerful army. It's There's a big, yeah, right, yeah.
Nice.
There's a big like vault that all of them go into. Gorillas are too big to climb through because it's too cramped, so we can flood it, kill them all. Nice, clean break. It's just in real life, when you're fighting an army, I feel like you can't usually that easily just put that entire army in one place to just be done with it. And I feel it just makes the movie feel way too simple and convenient. Now I'm focusing on a lot of the negatives only because I thought the movie was really good. I just didn't think it was great, so I have to explain why it's not great. Well, why is it good? I mean, the usual reasons. Good character, good special effects. I liked the emotions. We all know that stuff already.
Yeah, I thought the movie was just good. Wow, it sounds like you thought it was really good?
Pretty good.
Pretty good. Okay, so I'm like just a notch below you. I was a little bored generally, and I didn't think the aspects of the movie that I cared about, I didn't think they delved deep enough into. I think at least half the movie should have been Noah discovering the true history and something meaningful happening because of it. And I didn't feel like they really did much with that.
Well, there's a theme of twisting history. At Proximus Caesar, he seems to only remember one thing Caesar said: apes together strong. Like, that's the
Hmm.
only lesson he took. And I think that's interesting to have Rocco over here, Proximus Caesar over here, and how they take history and twist it to their own liking.
Hmm.
It's an interesting theme, but I don't think they do much to explore it. And to your point, if they went deeper on Noah discovering the truth, if they found a way to make that a compelling story, they could have explored the theme further. Like,
Hmm.
why do people twist history? How do they do it? Like, what are the lies that Proximus Caesar tells that are kind of twisted versions of the truth? Really, that's the one example. Apes Together Strong. Like, that's the only, from what I recall, that's the only example where you can see he's sort of borrowing some truth and leaving out some other inconvenient truths.
Yeah, and they should have gone a lot deeper with the Rome stuff. Like, I love that concept of him just being interested in Roman history and applying it to his kingdom. Um, you, I remember talking when Noah was first dragged into that base. Didn't you also think it looked kind of like a Coliseum almost? I
Yeah, I
really
did.
thought we were about to see him like battle, like
Yeah,
one on
that would be
one.
cool.
That
That
would
would
have
have
been
been cool.
awesome and very Roman like.
It also there did feel like there wasn't enough sense of danger and urgency once they were under Proximus Caesar. Like, of
Mhm.
course, they killed Noah's father, and they took them all captive and forced them into his kingdom. But I feel like they could have made him a crueler king. And he was bad. He was definitely bad. But if he did some horrible things, like force them to fight in a gladiator match, you would more viscerally feel like, I hate that
Yeah,
guy.
I
I need to see him dead. I need them to escape. I wasn't feeling that as much as I thought. I
yeah.
think
I
I could
mean,
have.
I agree, except I I don't think they did it right, but I actually like that he wasn't just straight up evil when they were under his rule. It was almost like as soon as they were brought there, he was like, "Hey, you're all apes. You're part of my kingdom now. It's all good." You know? So they could have made him a more complicated character where like because the way he was talking, like it made sense. He wanted to get into his vault, get information. um, yeah, he kind of took advantage of his apes to make them like try to break open, get the vault open, and they would get injured and stuff. But he had a noble cause, and I think I kind of wish they made his character more gray. Instead, they would just wanted us to act like he was pure evil and that's it, without really going far enough in either direction.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think to your point, it's in a way it's a good thing they didn't make him cartoonishly evil,
Hmm.
but without that, it does just get rid of that feeling of we got to get out of here right
Hmm.
away. I think there's a way to strike the balance. You can make him gray like he is, but also make it clear why they need to get out of there right away. And it's like I have a hard time. This is partly why I haven't reviewed that many movies, is because when I feel like I have to justify my opinions as I'm talking, I can hear the response comments, and then I want to respond to them while I'm talking, and it just becomes like a word salad because I can hear people saying, like, really, you don't understand why they had to escape? No, obviously. They killed his father. Nobody wants to live under his rule. Like, of course they need to escape. But just think of other movies where you can really feel it, you know? And it's the emotional truth and the logical truth.
Hmm.
I won't take it down a notch, right? Relax. I do think Kevin Durand, the actor who played Proximus Caesar, I did think he did a great job. He was an awesome, just the way his performance was great. What a wonderful day! I've been screaming that in the apartment all like nonstop.
Yeah. In the trailer, I thought that line was kind of weird, but in the
Same.
movie, I liked it
It
because, like,
worked.
you can tell, like, he's an ape who's learning how to talk like a leader, and he, in his mind, that sounded really cool.
He
And
probably, like William H. Macy's always reading him Roman history because that's what he's
yeah,
into. He probably heard a king said something like that once. He's like, oh, I'm going to use that. He's
yeah,
trying to mimic them, which I love that idea.
same.
Now, the movie does end, like I said, with them turning the satellites back on. In a way, it's sort of resetting things from where we left off with War for the Planet of the Apes, where, I mean, in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, that was the premise. The humans were trying to turn the radio on. They did. They got in contact with the army, and then in war, that army came from the north and they all got killed. So this is almost resetting it, saying there are still humans out there with technology in bunkers, so it's not over yet. So there's a danger that a sequel to this starts to feel like a retread. And this one didn't feel all that new. I think the theme, like we already talked about, of sort of taking history and twisting it, that's kind of a new theme. And it sort of borrows from the original movies, but I think that's okay to take from the old ones, make them new again. And what's cool here is we actually lived through the history in the movies. And now we can fast forward and you can do the theme of changing history based on history we actually saw. That's pretty cool. So there's an opportunity to keep the series fresh, but I think there's a risk it can turn into a bit of a retread. And the producers have come out and said, we have plans for 9 of these movies. You've seen 4 of them. And I don't know if they want to go into the crazy sci-fi territory like the originals. I really can't picture time travel in these movies. They had the Icarus, the ship, take off in the first one. I take that as an Easter egg until we see some actual weird sci-fi stuff. But right now, that would feel totally inappropriate to me.
I feel like once a franchise has a certain number of movies, it always has to introduce sci-fi elements. I don't know if that's true. It just sounds right to me.
I already hear the comments. Morons! Did you miss the sci-fi? There's a virus that turned the apes smart.
It's not.
That's sci-fi.
I mean, I guess a lot of things are sci-fi then.
There's degrees of sci-fi.
Has something that's not in real life exactly like that, and then it's sci-fi.
Right. But here's the big question. So I think it's safe to say you and I will both be there for another Apes movie. We're curious. We hope it's good. We're not saying, oh, we're done with this series. This was a solid movie. I'm curious to see where it goes next. The big question, though, Wes Ball, the director of this movie. We know what movie he's making next, or at least one of the next movies he's making. We know what it is.
Yes. Link.
Link, The Legend of Zelda.
You play as Link.
Yes, of course they're going to call the movie Link. The most, if you're going for brand recognition. Does this movie give you confidence?
No, but Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Yeah, I mean, I think he can make us. Sorry,
let me just make it in case it wasn't clear. He made this movie, and then he's making Zelda. So
I know.
Yeah. For anyone listening,
I know. Realize. I know you're telling the audience.
I just can't talk.
No. It's just okay. This movie was decent, but my feeling is Zelda requires like another level to turn into a legit, like, amazing movie.
We want it to be transcendent. We want this to be the Lord of the Rings trilogy of the 2020s.
There's just so much to figure out for a movie of Zelda because the games I don't think they contain enough information for someone to work with to be like, okay, it's obvious what I need to do with, like, I mean, the big question is Link, really. Like, he doesn't talk in the games.
Right. Well, that was one of the questions people are asking. Like, will Link talk? And he's like, well, he does talk in the games because you can pick from a dialogue tree. You just don't hear his voice.
Yeah. I mean, I guess just like everybody else, I'm just having a hard time visualizing a live action Zelda movie.
Now, if you hear that they cast Tom Holland as Link, does that make your anticipation go up or down?
Down.
Just because it's too obvious a choice? If you think of like a young guy,
is it an obvious choice? I don't think it even is. I don't.
He might have aged out of it.
I don't see him as Link.
Yeah, I don't really see it either. But I'm just thinking like young actor who people like. But also, that's another question: do you go young Link or do you go adult Link?
Both.
You hate time travel. You said it yourself.
No, I didn't. I never said that.
Yeah, actually, speaking of time travel, unless you can invent time travel in the next 60 seconds. I have to leave with a physical therapy appointment. For those who are the scooter incident, still recovering. Still can't use my ankle fully. Right thigh still hurts. Got other issues unrelated. So I'm going to go see my physical therapist now. So I got to go. Let's wrap it up there. I had a bunch of other topics. We'll save them for another time. All right. Thank you, everybody, for watching. If you enjoyed this, make sure to like, subscribe, hit the bell icon. I'm not going to say we're going to do this consistently. That is my goal, but every time I say it, it doesn't happen. But this time it will.
Yeah.